Welcome to the Thursday, August 12th meeting of the Azure Cloud Provider Subproject. And we're part of the CNCF Kubernetes community and governed by the Code of Conduct. So let's all be nice to each other. I really don't think that'll be enough issue with this crew. I'm very happy to see both of you. Let me drop the agenda.
Oh, I'm there.
Link.
I'm actually
taking
notes.
Okay, cool. Fantastic. And I can see Andrew's there too, since I'm guessing Andrew is the other anonymous. One of you is a panda and the other one is chipmunk. Awesome.
I always find that so funny because it's like, I am logged in. I don't know why it doesn't realize, but
It's odd. Okay, so there's only one item on the agenda currently, which is about follow-up from the set of emails and discussion in the last community meeting about the fact that I have now moved on from Microsoft. And I was just telling Andrew I'm doing product at a startup called Blameless in the SRE space. And so far, so good. I had my first value-added idea yesterday. So I guess onboarding has been successful. Yeah.
Not at all surprising because Craig is, of course, awesome.
Thank you, Bridget. And I couldn't tell you how happy it is to see you. I miss you. So the only agenda item is well, what do we do since I can't commit to being co-leader of the meeting? Before you hopped on, Bridget, I was starting to give Andrew kind of a history of how the meeting got to where it is, what the normal is, and at least as emeritus, I'm nominating myself emeritus co-lead, my input on where things could go. And so I'll spend just a minute doing that on the recording since, in case other people want to do that. So this meeting has bounced around over time. We have a challenge in that the users are spread all over the world. And the core engineering team that do the vast majority of contributions are in China. And so none of the times have effectively worked for getting all of the real stakeholders in the virtual room at the same time. And that means that requires a significant amount of lift to share information effectively between the different kinds of stakeholders. And I was spread too thin to effectively do that, to be quite frank. So I wasn't effectively doing that. So the meeting has kind of languished. We went from having a not friendly to North America or Europe time that was more friendly to China meeting to alternating between the two times. And so we went from having normally about 3 people or 4 people show up to having 1 maybe show up. So I wouldn't say that that was an effective change. Also, contributing to that was the fact that the agenda was very self-service. I would post the agenda. Everybody knows where the agenda document is because it's linked in the Slack. It's linked in the community pages and all of that. But it's extremely inactive. Basically, the only person who would put agenda items on there was myself, and often there weren't agenda items, and the agreement among those of us who did show up was that if there was no agenda, we would cancel. So, all that being said, the meeting is kind of languished. The Slack community is, I wouldn't say crazy active, but there's a lot of activity there, and there's a lot of community helping each other. So that seems pretty healthy. Azure folks step in and contribute, and so there's that kind of thing. And then the email alias is extremely dead. Nothing really shows up there. And in fact, maybe there may be, if I remember right, there's test grid auto email notifications end up getting routed there or something. So people probably just put a filter on it and don't ever look at it. So there's a number of things that could be done. Andrew was suggesting that he's trying to advocate that in the Kubernetes community, now that we're at kind of a stable point, it should be totally fine and normal for there not to be a regular recurring community meeting. That's one option. Other options are to do it quarterly or monthly, or to focus entirely on fostering the community where they are in Slack, right? And focus on events, things like that. I'm open to any of those things, would be glad to support. And then the last thing I think to say is that there's some housekeeping that whoever wants to step in and kind of take the reins. I gather from the email that both of you would be happy to do so, and I think that's awesome. I think co-leads and collaboration would be great. There's some housekeeping, like for example, Stephen Augustus is still listed as a co-lead, and I think he's definitely on to doing other things, and not including this. So those kinds of things need to be taken care of. I think that's all I want to, my brain dump.
Awesome. No question about that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sitting here looking at this SIG cloud provider, Azure meeting minutes and agenda, Google Doc, with the sub-project owners that need to be updated. However, I know that they also have stuff in GitHub. So like we should probably update whatever all of the sources of truth are. We also probably can't unilaterally pick people, like CNCF has processes, right?
So the processes for picking co-leads, especially on sub-projects, are not clearly defined. It is actually sort of up to consensus of the community and leads to informally elect or choose new co-leads. And so based on my understanding of that loose process, each project essentially has its own, sub-project has its own governance. What we've done and is effectively ask the community what needs to happen. And I asked for nominations and volunteers, and you two stepped up, and Nadir, who unfortunately hasn't been able to make it. And so I think it's up to us to decide what to do, and inform the rest of the community, and and solicit any objections or alternatives.
Okay, we just went through like adding somebody to the Helm core organizer maintainer team with a very relatively, compared to this, heavyweight formal process with voting, and we had to go look up exactly what the 2/3 majority stuff on Wikipedia was, and all that. So it looks like we're not in that situation here. I am super happy to have Andrew be in charge of stuff and me support him, or I just want to make sure we don't have, like, for example, currently you are logged in as SIG Azure, Craig.
Yeah.
If I found out with SIG Network that if there's only 1 or 2 people who have the login, you end up with a meeting that can't be started because the right person's not answering. So like, I would like us to have at least 2 people with that,
That's the main reign. That's actually my only reigns that I have to have. That's on is the host key for.
Right. Well, it's not just host key though. You need like the login.
Yes, the username.
The host key is not enough because you need the login if you're going to go get the recordings and put them somewhere. So yeah, I guess I want to hear from Andrew what he wants from me tactically. What I want to accomplish here is get the Zoom login info, if possible, so that we can get the recordings, figure out where the recordings go. And is there a manual upload process, et cetera, because CNCF has changed that a couple of times too.
Yeah, I can walk through what I've been doing. There may be easier ways to do it. Andrew's probably more, both of you are probably more tied into that than myself.
There's at least 2 different workflows that I've seen, and it has to do with whether or not you've been converted in a specific way. And anyway, we can get those details offline. I want to hear from Andrew, honestly, like what he feels about this, what he wants to do. The biggest question in my mind is, what time would you like to run a meeting? Because honestly, I don't think we should have a meeting that is confusing enough that people don't know when they can come to it. So even if it's a bad time, at least if it's a time, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll start with just being like transparent with like motivations and like, why do I care? I think there's right, like first one is that I've been co-chairing like the cloud provider SIG for a while, and we're doing this whole like migration to external, trying to get cloud providers removed from Kubernetes to make it like really vendor neutral and kind of agnostic. And so like I kind of slice up my time to be involved in like the various cloud providers. I'm pretty involved in the AWS one as well. And so I'm trying to just kind of make sure that like every provider that has like code inside core Kubernetes is like, making progress on the whole migration construction efforts. So that's one part. The second part is that like my employer, VMware, like we obviously have products and services that are on Azure, right? Like, and we have a lot of involvement in like CapZ as well. Like Nader is a maintainer on CapZ, and so along with that same line of thinking, we also want to be more involved in the the actual like the load balancer integration, the storage integrations, like all that stuff on Azure as well. And so that's kind of how like Nader and I were like, hey, we should, if they're looking for folks to help, even if it's just like running a meeting or like helping triage, definitely open to helping there. I'm not particularly too opinionated on like how I want to help right now. So like, yeah, like I don't even need to be given the host key. I'm cool with not having the host key. I'm cool with just like, helping with triage, just being in the meeting, helping go through issues. But of course, like, yeah, like if we need someone who has the host key, who can click the record button and like run things, that's cool too. So I'm pretty open to helping wherever the gap is.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to have meetings, which I think we should, I think a minimum is like one meeting a month at a time that works for you. So that is, I guess, an action item is let's find a time that at least works for the two of us and we can have conversations. And then what we've found in like, say, the OSM project is every once in a while, we do get community members coming in, and often we don't, but we get a bunch of views on the videos. And so then it's like, okay, maybe some community members really just want to kind of, people want to learn by different ways, right? Like sometimes they want to be in GitHub issues, sometimes they want to be in Slack, sometimes they want to participate in a meeting, sometimes they want to watch videos for reasons that are completely unclear to me. Because honestly, how many videos of any kind of event or meeting do you watch after the fact? I know, but apparently people do, which is, everyone learns different ways, right? Okay, so tactically speaking, because I'm always like down to tactics, we need to get the Zoom login info and figure out where recordings go. We need to schedule at least one meeting coming up. We don't even have to commit to it forever, but we have to at least schedule a meeting coming up so that we can put something out there in the community. And then the issue triage thing, I actually have a question about, because I know that VMware was having like no work week or whatever last week. So I went to the cloud provider, not just Azure, like the overall meeting last week. And there were a number of issues where they wanted to assign them to someone. So I said, okay, assign them to me. And then I ended up talking to Peng Fei like on Teams later and got him to get in there and deal with those issues. But like, is that kind of something? I'm approaching this from the point of view of SIG Network, where we go to SIG Network, it's a pretty well-attended meeting full of maintainers who are actively working the issues. So the issue triage assignment thing in SIG Network, it's much easier because there's almost certainly going to be someone on the call who actually themselves will fix the issue, as opposed to like in this one, I approve of issue triage, but, and that's kind of my question for you at the governing like SIG, is the SIG cloud provider, like, do they actually expect someone in the meeting every time who can commit to taking the issue? Because it's like, I mean, you can assign it to me. I'm not going to do it, but I'll find you someone. Is that kind of okay?
Okay, yeah. So two parts. Like for just the cloud provider SIG triage, yeah, like we're really just looking for like any of these issues can fall into one of the cloud providers. So if like in the past, if someone from Azure was not in the meeting, we would just assign it to whoever we knew.
Well, these ones were Azure specific. So yeah,
right.
They obviously needed to be assigned.
Yeah, but during those calls, yeah, like it's similar to Sig Network where we're really just looking to assign and triage. I think for specific to like this sub-project triage though, I think the goal and motivation is a little different where unlike network where there's like a huge backlog of issues that need to be fixed, I think here we're more looking for like, what are the feature requests and issues that are coming up on GitHub that are stalling because we're not getting enough traction, we're not talking about it enough, and we're not really understanding like the issues, and like then prompt those issues to be discussed in the meeting and like kind of backfill the agenda that way. Because I do find that in a lot of sub projects, you can find tons of GitHub issues that would benefit from like a 10-minute chat, right? And so like I think that would be a good person to do is just triage and find what are the discussions happening.
Yes, they benefit from a chat if the people on the call can have that chat. I guess that's what I was saying is I'm not PingPei and I can never be PingPei. And so
that's why the time zone's so hard.
Right. But I mean, I'm not saying say cloud provider time is going to change. I'm just kind of curious. This kind of leads me to I wonder if it would be valuable to have a recurring this sub-project meeting at a time that team can join. I mean, yes, we're not going to change the overall SIG meeting, but if we can have this meeting, during my spouse's guitar lesson on Monday night, which is when the chatting I was doing with PingPei this week ended up being like, you know what I'm saying? I'm kind of wondering.
What time is that typically?
It's like, Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So what time zone are you in?
I'm Eastern. So so from folks that I work with some folks based in China, like at VMware too. And I find that 8 to 9 Eastern is like the most ideal because it's like late afternoon for West Coast people and then like morning for them. So I'm okay with that.
I'm just wondering, I know that Craig, from your perspective, and Nadir, I'm interested in your perspective too, of course, but Craig, from your perspective, is there a good reason that the sub-project meeting should not be at a China-friendly time zone, since the cloud provider at Azure in general will not, the cloud provider for all clouds is going to be when it is, but is there a reason the sub-project meeting for Azure shouldn't be at a China-friendly time?
Every other session is at a China-friendly time right now.
Oh, yeah. I'm just kind of wondering, what is the Europe-friendly time one? You were saying it was attracting some people, but no one was coming to it sometimes?
Well, yeah, there were requests from folks who were in Europe to have a meeting at the time that they could attend because they couldn't attend at 6 p.m. Pacific, which was the time we'd arrived on.
So true.
For China-friendly and having some overlap with folks on the West Coast. But I underinvested in gathering more interest from those folks, and so this time slot ended up getting very little attendance.
Now, what time zone are you joining us from, Nader?
I'm also from Eastern.
Okay.
I'm in Toronto as well, same as Andrew.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so you joined a discussion in progress, which is basically us just kind of figuring out the logistics of Craig is being so helpful and so kind, because honestly, a lot of times when people piece out of a project, they're like, good luck, and they aren't giving this much handover help. So I really appreciate what Craig is doing here, but we're kind of trying to figure out, tactically speaking, what do we need to do? We need to get the Zoom login info, figure out where the recordings go for this recording that is happening right now. And then we also need to determine what our very next move is in terms of having more community focused meetings like this. So this one, of course, this specific one, the time is actually not awesome for me just because it's backed up right against the Helm call that I also run. But the having something Europe friendly is great if we have people in Europe who want to drive it. That's kind of where I'm at with that. So yeah. I'm not anti having it, but I would rather make sure if we're having meetings like this, I would rather make sure we're having meetings that we can accomplish something at. For example, the issue triage Andrew was talking about in the broader cloud provider meeting, which is not at the China-friendly time zone. I basically just took all the issues and went, okay, and then I went and talked to China. And so this meeting, I would much rather have it be at a time zone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm also okay like with China. That would be late for me, I guess, but
Mhm.
it's like the one time, so I would be okay with that just to make it
Yeah.
fair for like the China folks, because I know a lot of the people who work on the Azure one are from China, so
Yeah,
I
so if it was
see. Yeah.
once a month at
that
8
works
to
for me.
9, yeah, once a month, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern, I think, yeah, that's cool for me. So you mentioned Mondays
Yeah.
is when your husband has guitar lessons. Like, I'm cool with that.
But I mean, that happens to be a time that it's certainly not going to make anyone in our household sad that I'm working at night because he has guitar lesson anyway. So okay, so
Yeah,
thank you
that
so
works. It's
much,
only once a month, so
Craig.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Okay, but so I'm going to propose then that this time slot, we don't necessarily hold it next month until we see whether or not it is constructive for us to at least have one meeting. We're trying to get more people to come to. Does that sound reasonable? Okay.
So
Yes.
should I just change the owner in Google Calendar to you or Andrew or Nader?
Yeah,
'Cause
you
that-
can. So in Google Calendar and in see the thing with Google is, let me just give you my Gmail account. I have a G Suite or whatever it's called now. Google, the Bridget@cromwell.org one won't work, basically. I just put my Gmail one in the chat. If you have not attempted the fun of transferring things between Gmail and Google org stuff, no, not possible. But
Wait, sorry. One
that
question. So does Pengfei run the other meeting that's China friendly, or Craig, do you still?
no one runs. Craig runs that meeting, which is to say now no one runs that meeting, but I'm happy to run that meeting once a month.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is, like, if we're gonna change it to a China friendly meeting, then we don't need the alternating at all, right? Like, we're just gonna
No, that's what I'm proposing, that unless, since we don't have strong evidence right now that there are people in Europe who want to come to a synchronous meeting, I'm proposing that we have one China friendly meeting per month and then take it from there and see if it makes sense to ramp it back up. But I'm basing this on Craig's perception that, or his report, that there were not many people using the synchronous meeting from either end. So okay, cool.
Interesting. I'm having trouble finding the change owner on that.
Oh,
calendar invite.
it's, I can walk through it with you if you like. It's very confusing. You have to make sure the person first has it shared to them. And then after it's been shared to them, you go and you edit it in the dropdown on the person themselves.
Oh.
Yeah. Because identity management is not a solved problem.
No.
Okay, so if I feel like I've been doing more of the talking than I intended to, because I really wanted to hear, and maybe from our recent knitter joining, can you tell us, like, what is your, since I don't know this community super well, are you also at VMware, or like, where do you work? What makes you interested in cloud provider Azure?
Sure. Sorry, I'm gonna turn my video off because my connection is not great. Yes, I'm also from VMware, and I've been working for the last maybe year or so on the cluster API provider for Azure. I'm also one of the maintainers of like the cluster provider for Azure. So that would be interesting to get more into like the Azure cloud provider, since it's like related. And when it seemed that there's like a need for more people to work on that, I thought it would make sense and would fit with the other work I'm doing.
Okay, so you were, I know that Andy was mentioning that he thought we could do a little bit more with issue triage, et cetera. Is a good next step for us to have maybe the two of you take a look through any open issues and decide whether or not there's anything we want to move on, change, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I can start doing that. I haven't looked before at the issues. So I can start, maybe I can figure out a time with Andrew, we can do it together or something, or just asynchronously.
Okay. All right, so you're going to look at, you two will look at the open issues. I'll talk to Craig about the Zoom minutiae. And then I'll also look into exactly how we put leadership change in place in terms of who is going to actually run this. Nader, are you also interested in that? Are you interested in being a SIG cloud provider, Azure, like, co-running person? The main requirement would be every once in a while, you might run the meeting yourself.
Sure. I don't mind running the meetings, just like don't know what it involves yet.
All right, well, let's table that, but we'll maybe get there because that sounds exciting.
Okay.
I'm going to ensure the meeting schedules are accurate and video upload process are done. Okay, Craig, from your point of view, what are we missing? What do we still need to do here?
The only other thing that I would love to see would be some analysis of the activity on the Slack channel to see what would be even more supportive to that community. So the
Okay.
provider Azure channel.
And when you say analysis of the activity, do you mean figuring out if there's questions in there that are missing from GitHub, or like what are we looking for?
Yeah, like are people getting the help they need? Is there feedback that should be getting into GitHub that is not? Is there interest in other topics that aren't being addressed? I think all of those things would be interesting to help, foster a more healthy community. And I guess if folks are there that want European friendly time, we could direct them to the main SIG cloud provider meeting.
Yeah, because that one definitely is more European friendly.
Yeah.
Andrew, would you like to look through the stuff that's in Slack now and determine which, if any of it, either needs to be represented GitHub and or perhaps needs to be talked about in the next iteration of the meeting?
Yeah, like I think yeah, like Nader and I can just take the general action item of like backfilling the agenda, which will include both discussions happening on Slack and on GitHub and other places. But yeah, I'll take that too.
All right, awesome. Let's figure out when our next meeting is. Today is August 12th. Calendars are hard and my other computer just went to sleep. I'm also not positive I actually got all the invites set up correctly. This is the problem with having community involvement that started with CNCF and whatnot long before my current email address's lifespan, means that I'm subscribed to tons of stuff in my personal inbox, which is like all my CNCF stuff, which is fine, except then things are not as discoverable.
So something's really screwy because I see the next instance at this time slot, which is on September 21st. The next instance of the China friendly time slot should be at 6 p.m. on August 23rd. But right now I only see it on my personal calendar. I don't see the parent of it, which is on the.
That's fine. I'm just going to write that. I'm just going to
calendar.
write that as a note. Next meeting, 6 p.m. Pacific, August 23rd. And we'll sort it out.
The challenge is I can't assign, I can't change owner to you if I don't.
For the calendar?
For the calendar invite. Because I don't see the one that's on SIG Cloud Provider. I do see it for the next September time. I don't know what's going on there.
As long as you make me an owner of the calendar, then I should be able to add things to the calendar. You just got muted.
Okay, so on the calendar, that I probably don't have permissions to do that. You'll probably go to SIG-Contrib-X to get permissions
Okay.
on that calendar. Or I don't know, maybe Andrew can do that as co-chair of the SIG Cloud Provider calendar. Because it's on that calendar.
Okay, I can maybe look at that too. Like I know like sub projects are supposed to use a shared SIG calendar, but I don't know like how well we've been at enforcing that and like how well people do.
It very well could be that the best solution is for, even though it's confusing, I think for some people, just to cancel the existing ones and recreate. And
Yeah, there's at least 3 to 4 different community events I'm involved with that all handle it different ways. It's super awesome. But we all agree our next meeting is 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Monday, August 23rd.
August 23rd. Yeah. Okay. And yeah,
I'm just looking at a calendar to make sure that is a real time that exists in the world. And it is.
and just adding to what Craig said, like I think if we were to just cancel and recreate the event, I think that would also trigger like a wider notification out to people
Sure.
that have like declined the event previously. So yeah, maybe that is a good idea to get some traction.
Okay, so you'll look into the correct way to do that such that we make an event that exists in the world that is easy for people to actually subscribe to actively. We can sync on that because I want to make sure that we also put links everywhere.
Yeah.
okay, so then my action is actually to cancel the existing ones that I'm the owner of.
Maybe we should make sure we're ready to create the new one before you cancel it. Because if you cancel it and then there's no other word, people might be like, what is happening?
Yeah, so just signal me on Slack and I will cancel when you signal me.
All right, I am writing that down. Okay, I do need to jet pretty quick here. Is there anything else we should talk about? Craig, you're muted again.
And my computer is doing weird things. I'm already doing each of these actions in Slack, so look for those notes.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank y'all.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, everybody.